All right, we are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to panel 3 for our Being the Quantum Human Evolution Conference, brought to you by Portal to Ascension and Soul Search. And we're just so excited that, for all of you tuning in via Zoom, on YouTube, on Facebook, welcome to everyone. It's really been a heart-opening and healing experience for all of us, tuning in now, and those of you tuning in on the replay later. And I'm just very excited to continue the discussions on what it means to becoming quantum human and the quantum human evolution. And so I'm going to just introduce our panelists briefly here as we get started. And our first panelist is India Prema, who is, she's here and she is an amazing healer, mystic, guide. She calls herself counselor for emerging souls and supports others in their awakening process through shadow work, or shadow bliss, as she likes to refer to. And she can really quickly and efficiently guide you into a transformational process where you learn to live more holistically, authentically, and closer to your inner freedom. And so you can check her out on Soul Search, and I'll be dropping her links in the chat. So you'll be able to see that and connect with her, as you wish. Put the chat there. And then also I'd like to welcome Nicole Keating, and she is a divine architect for spiritual leaders, creator of Heaven on Earth Sedona retreats, and Sourcitarian. And Nicole supports spiritual entrepreneurs and leaders to source their businesses and ideas to manifest in the new paradigm in a fun, creative, sustainable, and highly conscious way that aligns with the life they'd love. And she supports many different spiritual businesses to birth their highest aligned visions in the world, including here with Soul Search, where she was really leading and working with us to bring forth, our platinum program, which many of all the speakers you see here have been a part of. So that's been really amazing, and I'm excited to have her here with us too. And we are happy to welcome back Joan of Angels as part of our panel today as well. As you all know, she is an intuitive guide, oracle, spiritual luminary, best-selling author, and visionary artist. And she just brings forth incredible messages from the celestial realms and beyond, and works with people who are called to awaken to their best self through her soul awakening sessions and her soul mastery signature coaching program, as well as many other offerings that she has, including her soul essence sessions as well. And of course, we have our host and moderator for the panel, who is joining us as well, Mr. Alan Steinfeld, who needs no introductions.
Well, you can give me an introduction. Come on.
Sure. Well, as I've been saying this whole day, Alan, you are truly a leader for all of us in this path of bringing forth consciousness, bringing forth the new earth, really shifting the paradigm of, where people have been and where we're going, including bringing forth your book, Making Contact. But, really so much of what we're doing here at Soul Search, as well as with New Realities and Portal to Ascension, is supporting people in their transformation process and letting people know that there's so much more out there in terms of support and healing than what we've been taught, and once we start awakening to that reality that, wait a minute, there's so much more out there than what I've been told this whole time, everything starts shifting. So, thank you, Alan, for really, paving the way and interviewing and bringing forth, the wisdom, the knowledge from all of these spiritual leaders and teachers and guides for decades. And now, helping really people now understand that we are all truly healers ourselves. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And this is one of my favorite topics. Authenticity, vulnerability, I'm working on those, but curiosity, I have that one. And that's been my driving force. I mean, yes, of course you need authenticity and vulnerability, but all that kind of drops in when you are genuinely curious. And I translate curiosity to creativity, because your creativity is your avenue to explore. And that is a manifestation of curiosity. Yeah, you can look at a lot of things, but then you have to put it out to the world. This is what I'm curious. And that's why I'm so happy Joan is joining us today, because Joan I just discovered a really amazing digital artist. And maybe she'll share some of her, because curiosity is an adventure into the unknown. That's blossoms into a creative output. So you put out curiosity, you get back creativity. It's like that, because the human mind is made for exploration. That's why there's humans all over the planet. It's like, oh, what's over that mountain there? What's across that sea? How do I get there? It drives everything. And so it's not so much as developing a skill set as a liberated light leader. It's being that. It's like, if you are curious and if you can drop into that vulnerable, authentic place, the emergence of the spirit comes through. That's what I really feel. And that's sort of where I would love to take this discussion, because we are searching for our soul, Tangela.
Exactly, Alan. And just before you get started, I want to introduce our fourth panelist and also co-host here, one of our liberated light leaders with a cat peeking through his shoulder, Neil Gar.
That's funny. That is really funny.
Neil, as you all know, is founder and CEO of Portal to Ascension and creates hundreds of live and online events for consciousness awareness and consciousness raising. He's been doing this for over a decade. He is responsible for activating and raising the vibration for millions around the world, across the planet, across the universe. And he is probably one of the most curious people I know, as well as Alan. I have to say, both of you guys are very, very curious. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys are all here for this panel and excited to hear what you guys have to say about authenticity, vulnerability, and curiosity.
Well, I just want to say about Neil, Portal to Ascension is his day job. His art form is really that poetry, spoken word. Me and Joan just saw an amazing performance with Neil and a few colleagues, and it was the most entertaining event I've been to all year. Was these guys rapping and the singer, and we're exploring the world, all of these networking adventures together as a community, because we want to go deeper into who we are and how to express that. So, Neil, did you want to say something about being here? I know you just left the town.
Well, first of all, see, the cat is alive and well. It never died. So curiosity did not kill the cat. That's just what they want you to believe. All right, that's it. I'm done.
Wait.
I want to say something else too. Well, so for sure, the reason why I started Portal to Ascension was not only because it was a journey to heal that led me to a place of vulnerability and exploring vulnerability, which is the complete opposite of what I was taught. I was taught growing up about walls, acting like a man, even though truly you're so wounded inside. And when I saw that in my own family, I saw that there were I thought that that's what, being a man was, but then later in life, I started realizing there were deep underlying wounds that were a facade. So right now, and I'm definitely in the process of really embracing what it is to be vulnerable, communicating like that, especially in relationships, in close relationships, like with Alan and Joan, since we just lived together for a couple of months and things come up, and having these things come up and still exploring it. And then curiosity, Portal to Ascension is really everything I've had the opportunity to be curious about, create an event on. And that's why I work so closely with Alan, is because he is definitely my equal in curiosity.
Well, thanks, Neil. That's great. But Tangela, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the call. Can you introduce India, Zoe again? Because I want to get to, I think I know Nicole. Of course, I know Joan and Neil. But can you just introduce her to me again?
Yes. So India, I'd like you to meet Alan Steinfeld here. And India is a powerful healer. She calls herself the counselor to emerging souls and really works with people through shadow work, or what she calls shadow bliss, and taking people through, you know, the most painful moments and experiences and helping them, really supporting them and working with them on emerging to the other side. So, and she's
Great.
very authentic and courageous herself. So
Great. And you're sticking around too, Tangela, right?
oh, I wasn't, I'm happy to,
Oh.
sure.
Oh, if you want to, I just think you're all those things we want to talk about: vulnerable, authentic, curious, and but the first
Sure.
question I want to put out there is how do we drop away from the world that wants us to be so much in this frame, in this little box? I'm seeing that we're all in here. You know, we're put in these boxes, and each of us have really struggled. I know Neil, Joan, I mean, but what advice? I mean, I'm still searching for that myself, because there's one in every family, but you can't really take your family along with you unless, you know. So how did each of you break out of the box to become more authentic, become more curious, become more vulnerable? Because we're not taught that in this culture, and no matter what culture, we're not taught that. We're just taught to fit in, to move along, to do what everyone else is doing. You know, my mother wanted me to go into my father's business. It's like, that would be an awful enslavement. You know, he did okay, but it's like, no, we have to carve our own way. But I'm just asking, like, India, do you want to take that on, and then we'll go around?
Sure, I'd love to take that on. Thank you. That is a really great question, Ellen. And for myself personally, you know, I didn't know this at the time, but, you know, there was our personality. So there's India, and then there's our higher self. And when I wasn't listening back in 2005 to 2008, I had a complete collapse of my life in 2008. Went into the dark night of the soul for 5 years. I didn't even know what that was. And it sent me on a completely different path. I had been in corporate America for 25 years. The whole thing, you know, we're trained. We are trained as a humanity to grow up, find a mate, go to college, have kids, and go into debt. And I'm like, there's a big galaxy here, and that's not the whole reason why our galaxy exists, is for that small little paradigm of thinking. And through my own harrowing process, if you will, I kind of started, you know, I didn't even know what shadow work was until a couple of years ago. And so what happened for me is that, you know, I kind of found my way through trial and error, if you will. And I didn't know there was shadow. I was in the victim mentality because that's our society. You would be this way too. And it kind of just really shifted my whole life, is when I was in that process of the dark night of the soul. Like, everything got stripped from me. And then I went from trying to rebuild it from the outside. And then I had stage 3 breast cancer. And that was where I had my wake up call, like, oh, I'm living from the outside in, not from the inside out. And that was where I started my journey about 7 to 8 years ago in working from the inside out, and working with being true to myself, being authentic to myself, being honest with myself, because everything starts from within. And until we know who we are, we can't share with the world who we are if we don't know who we are. We cannot give away what we don't have. So, everyone has their own process of getting here. It depends on what your soul has asked for in its incarnation. Right. So, yeah.
Beautiful. No, that is a great way to start and understand this, not just this panel, but this way of being from the inside out. And we are not taught who we are on the inside. We're just taught to be totally outside, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, Tangela, I know you didn't want to be part of this panel. You also, but you did mention this before, but you had a huge struggle coming from the culture that you were in. Can you talk about that process of finding the inside?
Sure. I mean, that's why, exactly. I was actually taking notes when you were chatting, India, because it's true, Alan, like we are taught to live from the outside. We're not taught to live from the inside. We're not taught to say, who am I? Like, what makes me happy? What is it that I want to do? What makes my heart sing? What lights me up? We're told, this is what you have to do. This is what's going to happen. And that's it, And so, like, just like Neil was chatting about in the last panel, coming from, I come from South Asian culture, from Bangladesh. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, Muslim background. We come from, these backgrounds where, there's a long lineage of, of restriction, of having to fit into the family, culture, social, structures, all of it, and be a certain way. So, I was taught you have to be this certain way. And all the things we're talking about today, energy healing, multi-dimensional guides. I mean, I was never exposed to any of these things. I never heard of any of these things until just a few years ago, really. And that's the reality for most people, honestly, around the world, is just that. But what happened is that once I started like waking up and like hearing like, oh, we have all these modalities, we have all of this stuff available. I suddenly started being able to do this work where I was like so restricted. I lived in a life of restriction, and my life was falling apart. Everything I built fell apart. And I was just like, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, because I couldn't see forward and say, well, that's what I'm supposed to do, because I was completely blind to it. I could never have told you a few years ago, oh, I'm going to start a platform for spirituality and consciousness where we talk about the multidimensional realms, because people would think I'm crazy, and people still do think I'm crazy. But, that's okay, because now I have all of you guys around me who are supporting me and telling me I'm not crazy. And more than that, you're saying, and more than that, it's just like, we're doing this together, and we know we're here for our purpose and mission together. And how powerful is that I can share my story with you guys and then be free to be me. And that's what this journey is about,
Yeah, but part of the journey that you didn't say was how you got from not knowing to finding your. I'm really interested in that piece. Like, what led you? Yeah, well, not knowing. How'd you to knowing? Yeah.
How do I get to know? Well, I mean, it's a long story. Not everyone's awakening story is just like, oh, I had a Kundalini awakening like on a mountaintop. I mean, mine was. Like I grew up, Muslim. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. It was very restrictive cultures. I wasn't allowed to really do most normal things American kids can do. I was told you can't drink, you can't date, you can't wear what you want, you can't be who you want. You have to kind of go into like more this, even though I was always like very spiritual and mystical, I didn't really resonate with like these like religious, confines. I didn't know what else to do. So I just started exploring mysticism once I got to college, and it was awakening. But then I couldn't, I still, like built a tech company. I still, like kind of built a life in New York that, was the picture of what you're supposed to do. And then at one point, the universe was like, this is no longer in alignment, and we're going to take it all away. Until you start wake. And that's when like Joan said last time, it took the universe blowing everything up for me for me to start being like, okay, like what else can I do here? You know, what else am I supposed to do? And even though I had the message to start Soul Search, you know, years ago, I didn't do it, you know, and I did it in a way, and then I went back off of it, and I was still trying to do what I always did. I was still trying to do my normal business. And finally I asked the guides, like, what is going on? Like, why isn't this working? And they were like, well, when are you going to start focusing on your spiritual work? And I was like, what is that? And they were like, Soul Search. I was like, oh, okay. And even to this day, it like Neil said, it's a process. I'm not 100% comfortable being 100% vulnerable and authentic and like letting everyone know about everything that I do, because I know there's judgment, there's fear, there's disbelief, you know, and we don't want to deal with those. It's uncomfortable for us to deal with that stuff. So, you know, but it's a process that I'm still going through. But it took me, again, like, you know, my life blowing up and being left with like, just, okay, I'm going to just follow my guidance. I'm going to go to Sedona. I'm going to meet my spiritual community and friends, and suddenly start getting this support to start moving forward. And then boom, there appears Alan Steinfeld.
Thank you. No, that answers my question. I mean, yes, moving to Sedona is a big acceleration on the path. And that's why I want to talk to Nicole too, because she's part of the heart of the Sedona community. And I want to know your story, Nicole, and what got you to Sedona, but what got you to even want to get to Sedona and all that? What happened to you?
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Yeah, it's funny, when you first asked the question, I thought about what was it in my nature that allowed me to be this way. So I'll start there, and I'll go quickly into Sedona. But I was thinking about when I was a kid, the one thing, I mean, everybody's parents have things, right? Patterns, and you're like, I picked up that negative pattern. But one of the beautiful positive patterns that they gave me was they always let me as a child try anything new. So I got to try gymnastics, soccer, painting, you know, all kinds of things. You know, we didn't grow up wealthy, like, you know, lower middle class or middle class, but there was always a budget to try new things. So, you know, I did a lot in the art world, and I've had like multiple sessions of art, being a painter and having that come back into my world. So I feel like as an artist, you naturally develop curiosity. Otherwise, you can be your own worst critic and really create a really painful experience trying to make art, right? So I feel like everything that we do and everything that I do is a medium, if you will, like a form of artwork. And one of the things I learned when I was a painter was, when you're staring at a blank canvas, it's very intimidating and overwhelming. So I developed this process of painting the edges. So I would work on big fat canvases, and I would always start painting the edges. And by the time I was done painting the edges, some clarity would come through of what I'm creating and what's next. I know Joan's an artist, and Indy is my neighbor and dear friend, and she's in the garage making lots of art right now. So that's a theme that's up for me. And as far as, so everything I've done and everything I've created has been some form of art. And so back in 2019, I did an online summit, and there was also this thing in the back of my head, like I was always like doing one thing and then doing another thing, and like just stacking these skills and these things that seemingly had nothing to do with each other. But you know, back in 2019, before COVID, I had a business called Sourcetarian, and I was doing an online summit for, you know, conscious brands, like organic businesses that have really made it in their ethos. And it was this beautiful summit. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden everybody was worried about immunity, and everyone was worried about health and money. And like, it just no longer made sense to release this beautiful piece of art that I created. Like the timing had to shift. And so that's actually part of what got me to Sedona, was this thing I had put my heart and soul into for 9 months, kind of disintegrating its natural course and purpose. And I had been coming to Sedona, and when that happened, I knew that I was supposed to come here. And when I got here, everything opened up for me. So it was following the curiosity of knowing spirit was closing one door quite painfully and opening another. And I think that just the spirit of not having a fixed mind. I mean, I am a Gemini Aquarius rising, so there's a lot of mutability here. Like, you can really blow me around and I'll still show up and keep walking the path. So, coming to Sedona was an incredible acceleration of my life. And, they say this in Sedona, if you come here and you're supposed to be here, the doors fly open for you. And that's really what happened. I came with the intention of staying for a month and finding a place. And within 2 weeks, I had the exact manifestation of this cute little cottage on sacred land, surrounded by healers, furnished. It's like, it's even my colorful style. And it's just so wild how boom, 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 the doors just open because of that open curiosity that I was just following the signs. And it's such a blessing to be living in this time where we get to, I call it like just following our heart's whispers, like the energetic expansion. Like, this feels like a yes, this feels like an open door, this feels like very contracting. Like, if you can start to be able to connect to the feeling of things, then that really is the universe's way of pointing us in the right direction, I find for myself. So that's really what I've been working on cultivating, is my own tuning fork of feeling the expansion and the contraction energy and just following that. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, Alan, and I had no idea I was going to be here supporting, spiritual healers and guides. What I really do is I work with the divine architecture. I work with Metatron and the angels to help bring forth the information. And when I do my sessions, I always tell people, stay open, stay curious, because you're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to know where we're going. Joan's done a session with me. You're not going to know what's happening. So stay out of that part of the mind that wants to understand, and know that we start at this 100,000 foot level and we go down in a spiral, and we're following the energy. So I even do that in my work, just following the yeses, the nos, like following the cues of what somebody's experiencing. And you can do this in your life everywhere you go. Really, it's just about becoming extra sensorial, in your life. And that's really is following the curiosity. I don't know where I went with that, Alan, but
no, it's all good. But the one thing I want to just follow up is you went from an artist to then working with community.
Yes.
And what's the vision? What's the future? And I'll get to Neil and Joan too, but how do we move our little collective Sedona community into like more community, like really bond, so we're there for each other in a way where it's like, oh, nice to see you at the kava bar, but how do we bond in there?
Yeah, well, I think that, the work that India does with the shadow, I think that shadows show up collectively as well. So it's really about bringing the principles of vulnerability, authenticity, and curiosity into community. And I just did a large event, 3-day event, 11/11. Some of you were speakers there, and it was amazing. And man, was that an exercise in community. Staying open, staying curious, and also the 4 agreements. I think the 4 agreements are really a powerful foundation, not taking things personally, following that ethos. And I'm one of the things I live by is the power of your questions equals the power of your life. So like, rather than making assumptions and putting up walls, asking questions is the key. So I think in community, in any co-creation and collaboration, it's about bringing an open heart and bringing the power of questions, and knowing that we are multidimensional. Every moment is multidimensional. So I've noticed in co-creation, it's so important to communicate clearly the goals and roles and the intentions and the excitement, but also as you hit, because they're always going to hit these sticky moments, because we all have our own experiences and our own patterns, our own wounds, and our own gifts. And so when we hit those moments, leaning into conflict, of leaning into curiosity in those moments is how we transcend as communities, and not just allowing those points of uncomfortability. Like Tangela was saying, there's these moments of like, this is not comfortable, but on the other side of that is the liberation, is the blessing, is the gift, is the medicine. So if you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable, the other side of that is freedom. And I think that's the key in our communities and our collaborations, and also just also knowing how we process. I'm a generator, and so I'm an emotional processor. So I know if I'm upset, I should not talk to you for at least a day. So because I have to go all the way through 80% of the emotion, and then I can come into a grounded space. So knowing yourself and how you operate is so important, and bringing something Tangela and I always do is call in the guides and angels before we work together, and I do this with all my clients. So yeah, it's really about calling up your higher self and meeting people there.
Well, thank you. It
Yeah.
is, and I like, it is freedom. We're all seeking freedom. We're all seeking liberation from our past, from the pressures of society. We're all seeking the freedom for expression. That's why I'm so happy to be talking to my next best friend there. Someone who's much more interesting than I thought she was, living with her for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months. And she has so much going on. And she was a chiropractor that was driven because she was told, be a chiropractor. She told me that. She was told to leave New York, go to California, and she follows that guidance. And now she's following it into, well, working with me and Neil and Tangela and everybody, but she's following it into her art. And that I really just love the visual image. And when people have an original vision of creation, it is authentic. It does open doors. It opens up what I call new cognitive abilities, because suddenly these images are moving us into new realities. So Joan, I know you're part of the Portal to Ascension, but I want you to talk about this creative part, because it's endlessly curious about the infinite possibilities. That I thought you were a good painter, but I think you're a great digital artist. So do you want to talk about your creations, and maybe we can actually look at some and describe what you're feeling when you create these?
So I sent you a link to the art. Feel free to bring some of it up. But
okay,
here's
yours?
a gift that's been given to me. Oh yeah. So Neil had said to me, Joan, can you come up with some Egyptian images? This is me as Hathor. So I didn't realize I had actually been Hathor in that past life, but I create so when I realized we're going to Egypt, some of my Egyptian memories started stirring. When I access these memories, like I'm starting to do soul essence paintings, portraits for people, it comes through in the interdimensional aspects of it. And my guides were showing me that when we're in these other realms or other planets or Atlantis or ancient Egypt, we were these amazing beings. We lived in these beautiful structures that were so high frequency that they supported us to spread our wings, just like this figure. And these are all portals. A lot of these are portals into other dimensions and into what, they call the ethers, the Akashic field. This is the ancient high Egyptian priestess. And she came through as I began to create images of myself and a few other people as Egyptians, and they're crying to come through. Our spirit wants us to know how powerful we are. And so the art is infused with this. This is the great temples, and it's designed to stir your memory so that and this is a cute little ship flying over, spreading cosmic.
Did we? Did we
to
lose you?
remember we're connected to the divine and how we are dimensional and we can access it sometimes through art like this allows you to transport yourself, and you never forget because this could be physical in your home and in your field. So some of this is my interpretation of some of those sites, some of that feeling. I happen to love this one. I love the Egyptian colors. I just love the feel. Every color represents a different vibration. And even their dress, you know, when we dress in 3D clothes and you wear a suit and tie, you're constricted. But when you dress as who you are exalted. Yeah, so these are some of my Egyptian that's been coming through.
But when you're doing them, are you feel like you're connecting into those ancient places? You seem like
I'm in another place, Alan.
Yeah.
I don't know where I am. If you said to me, Joan, how do you do it? Can you reproduce it? No, I can't. It's really a one in a time moment that I'm in the exact moment in space that these images will come through. And it's really like I'm in a frenzy. It's a Kundalini experience for me. It's almost orgasmic in its completion of it and fulfilling of it and immersion of it.
So I mean, this is that is the most authentic feeling, I think, when you're in that creative flow and your personality's out of the way. I think you really hit on what I've been trying to understand. The deepest, more authentic part of ourselves is when the personality drops out of the way and we are just pure creative force, you know.
Yeah, so my experience when they came to me in 2013 and paint 33 angels in 30 days was that I could do better if I closed my eyes sometimes. You know, that I was becoming a paintbrush of the divine. So I would do just like Nicole did. I'd paint the edges because who knew what they wanted me to do. Or the funniest thing is if I got a commission to do a painting for someone, I usually did 2 paintings. And because my logical mind would get in the way. So I just had to go and do another painting where my unlogical mind could unlock the keys. And then usually I had 2 aspects of the person. But letting go of our logical mind, I think, is one of the keys to authenticity, because it's our logical mind that says, oh yeah, right. You call yourself an angel, right? Okay, that's a lot, you know, or how dare you emulate the goddess or think you have these gifts. There's that part of us that I think the dark assigns to. I call them now the agents of the dark. There's a side that the other side knows that you are so gifted and talented, and if you could do your work, it would change the world. So they're very primitive. They just want to take you out, and they send your negative thoughts. They send people to reinforce your negativity. And if that doesn't work, they go further. They literally torture you to death here on the planet. So you will never remember that you are here for the light in every one of us. And so it's quite a game we play. So when you get the chance to channel in and feel tuned into that side of you, that's where your brilliance lies. And that's the gifts. But the universe has, you know, tried to conspire against that. And that's what makes it so much more powerful, that we've had to really embrace it and then never let go of it. You know, Neil talks about his background and giving up on PTA. And I can't tell you how many times it looked like I should go back to chiropractic or get a day job or something. They do it so that you will give up.
Well, that goes back to what India said, is that we have to discover the inside and bring it out. And I think art, creativity, imagination, trust, visionary experiences are all the proliferation of the inner parts of ourselves. So thanks, Joan. We'll come back and to see you and more art. But let me talk to Neil, because Neil, like I said, you have this day job, which is also very creative, and you're dealing with huge amounts of just people, and events. He has event booked every weekend for the next 2 years. I said, wait, I mean, how is that possible? But you also have this other side of you, the creative, artistic, spoken word poet. And that's like, how do you balance? Do you feel like you have two children, one the Portal to Ascension, one the spoken word? I mean, which one do you, it seems like when you're doing the spoken word, you are in love, and then you come back to the desk and fill out, which you also love that too. But what's going on for you? I actually should have asked you when we're just sitting here by ourselves, but what's going on?
Yeah, well, when it comes to, like, I started writing poetry when I was 16 in 96. And the first poem actually was called The Dead and the Dying, which was a poem about World War II, right? And I hadn't woke up to all this information yet. I was a very curious person. And, what I've been realized lately, I went from a victim mentality of like, oh, I was raised as a Hindu, so I became an atheist Hindu, to a more empowered one over the last couple of years, where now I realize that because I was raised Hindu, I was never told it was the only way. And because I was never told it was the only way, I was open to all the possibilities that came after it. So my curiosity was at its peak right around 18 when I graduated high school. And I started thinking, like, what is the root of all religion, right? And as I was thinking that, I started writing poetry that was in alignment with those truths, but I was making it sci-fi kind of, like, going through the wormhole, visiting a planet, making up different types of beings that I just came up with in my own head, not knowing about any of this world. So then I started researching. This is how it all ties together. I started researching online more words to put into my poetry, and that's how I found all this information. I was like, I wanted to know about like ancient civilizations, and then I found the Sumerian scriptures, and I read the Sumerian scriptures. I read the Quran, I read the Bhagavad Gita, and by 2001, 2002, at the same time as I was writing poetry, I was also at Panera Bread, like pretty much from 2002 to 2004, I was at Panera Bread like 3 times a week with like the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Sumerian scriptures, highlighting similarities and using it for poetry. And pretty soon I realized that there was so much information because I was so analytical and so science-minded and so mathematical that when I started realizing quantum world and vibration, frequency, and how the universe is, how consciousness can be explained, spirituality can be explained through science, it was just so much information came to my head. I didn't know how to present it, and I didn't have a platform at that moment to present it either. So by 2003, all my poetry pretty much shifted to this information. And so I would use spoken word and then hip hop, because I was actually, back then I was a freestyle rapper mostly. I was like freestyling all the time, going to music studios, freestyling. And I would use that form of delivery to convey entire books of information, if you will, within one story. Like one of my first ones was about the universe and the singularity of the black hole. And it was like a poem that isn't empowering, isn't disempowering. It was a neutral poem about how black holes work, right? And what implosion technology is and things like that. So my poetry actually evolved with me. And pretty soon, 2008, when I started doing Portal to Ascension full time, I also started the same year I started doing this. I just realized this right now. The same year I actually changed the name to Portal to Ascension. 2 months before that was the first time I ever performed live at an open mic. And so it completely grew hand in hand. And my dream has been since that moment is to be able to do it full time, more so that I can have more support with Portal to Ascension, the daily operations, so I can do it. Because I truly feel like what I'm creating, what a lot of other people are creating, is music for the next dimension. It's music that isn't even ready for the masses yet, but we're creating a whole new industry for it, right? And just to tie it into the whole concept of vulnerability, emotions, and authenticity, I really utilize music in most of my poems came from a deep, I don't know if sorrow is the right word, but a deep pain for seeing the traumas in the world. The things that have been done to us and the things that we've inflicted on ourselves, the devolution of consciousness, and just by default, the end of my poetry. So it's like you go through this journey where you're experiencing the darkness, the shadow, all the craziness in the world. And then the end of the poetry is solution oriented. So I've kind of utilized my poetry now to bring up things. And lately I've been told a lot about being a Scorpio and my astrology, and how like I go deep into the shadow world, and my poetry, my rap is shadow music. And so I'm really like digging deep into the depths of the darkness that we've experienced. And darkness can be dubbed as evil, or it could be darkness that's just simply the darkness of space, the black hole, which is neutral in its essence. And then bringing that up to the surface, and then coming up with like the empowerment solutions afterwards. So that's kind of where I'm at. And, you know, as you know, like this is my biggest passion. I could rap all day, you know, I could be in studio all day, do poetry all day, and hopefully one day I'll get to release more of my music.
Well, do you want to rap like a short little rap, just so we can feel like we saw Joan's art, and then just a little just to show. I mean, you're talking all that, but when you do these raps, something else comes through. So that's
all right. Yeah. In this world of calamity, with organized piety making people drop to their knees, we be the free. People see right in front. Time for the peripheral, narrow-minded ignorance. Be the bigger man and see the benevolence. The interdimensional energy of love holds my truth above other dimensions. I'm the anti-level vacuum being sucked down with the pull of a black hole, recycled in this universe that shows acceptance. Knows acceptance by accepting the predicament that we're all in. With all the government made me think I do is all I do is a sin. Straight fear-mongering. So I write with a pen and show beginning to end. Just know we chose to be here. Tear perceptions of fear. And remember, Jah will be waiting there. It's time to believe in yourself. To forget monetary wealth. To concentrate on your health. I felt lost, stones pelt. My body was bloody. Judgment by those who say they love me. But what does love mean? In these lower frequencies of emotions, causing mental erosions. I'm frozen in a rapidly moving time, with holes in the heavens, flow of energy from realms of divine essence. These beings, they think that we're under their guide to receive lessons of ascension. No, the gods we show, the biblical portrayal of Jesus and pagan rituals, the deities we worship and bow, ask for forgiveness, and how can we reach the kingdom of heaven? Away from ourselves. Looking externally for personified God, indemnified souls, the old ancestry of the duality of friends and foes. Know this, the energy level will persist. The new world order doesn't matter one bit. No one world without singularity. Physical perception manifests in the realm of spirituality. No order, pure anarchy to settle for humanity in 13 different third-dimensional planetary systems free. So follow me, and we will transcend and ascend to the fourth density.
That's exactly what I mean. That's so great. That's like such a clear message, and you know, entertaining and deep. But thank you. So I mean, that's one way to bring authenticity out in the world, art and poetry. I mean, how do you bring it out, India, with your work in the world? Like, how do you interface, like bringing that inside out and sharing it with people? What kind of work are you doing in that way?
Yes, thank you for asking. I wrote a book, and I wrote a book that, it's going to be published in June. It's called Burning Down the House, and it's a healing workbook. And it was based off my experience. And I too am a Scorpio Neil, and I'm a 4-house Scorpio. So it's all about going deep for me. Like most people go into their chakras, they work from the heart up. I work from the heart down. And I go deep into the underworld all the time. Excuse me. And for me, through my journey, and it was a 12-year process I was in. And it was really like, how do I unwind myself from all these conditions, all these patterns? I spent 21 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. I had to unwind myself from that, and all these beliefs and everything that I picked up that held me in the victim space. But I didn't know I was in the victim space because, you know, our planet lives in that mind space. And I only saw everything happening to me, not ever happening for me. And I too didn't know about energy and vibration till about, 4 years ago. And it came after, shaking my fist and sticking my middle finger at the universe, going, what did I ever do to deserve everything that seemingly was happening to me? And what I discovered through breaking things down was, oh, this is, our troubles are of our own making. And I had to unwind and unpack and reprogram childhood stuff, things I picked up in AA along the way, the defense mechanisms I created to, as a woman being in corporate America. And, I held a lot of, male toxic energy, and just, pounding. And I had to really unwind myself from all that. And, dropping from my head into my heart was a long process. And, going through cancer, sitting in a yoga studio, bald with no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and I'm sitting knee to knee with someone eye gazing. I was like, you talk about being vulnerable. And, for me, because I go so deep in things, if I know that I've already gone to the deepest, darkest place I've ever gone when I didn't know where I was, everything is a lot easier from there. Because I'm like, oh, I already hit rock bottom emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and energetically. And knowing that everything is a lot easier and softer. And, Nicole touched on this earlier in what she was sharing. I do a 4-part shadow process. And it is really understanding truly what self-awareness is. Truly what self-awareness is, because most of us have awareness of others. I'm awareness of your behavior when you're not acting the way that I want you to. And I'm uncomfortable because I'm uncomfortable with what you're doing because I can't control it. And so it's really bringing people deep into really what that means.
Yeah, what does that mean? True self? I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Well, because, there's self-awareness is really about, so you trigger me, right? Let's just say you consistently trigger me.
Okay, I didn't mean it to do it. I didn't mean anything.
And so, right. So I'm getting frustrated. I'm angry because you're doing this to me. You're not behaving the way that I want you to. And it's the overarching umbrella of what control is. And we all of us try to control our exterior world. Why? So that we feel better.
Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't care. So
That's what Byron Katie says. I'm just saying, Byron Katie, when you argue with reality, you lose. You're like, anyways, yes. So go back to what you're saying. Yes.
Yes. So, self-awareness is really coming into a place of, I like to teach people how to fish, if you will, right? So it's really understanding, oh, I'm triggered. Why am I triggered? Why am I routinely triggered? Right? And then it's, how do I pause? And of course, I'm giving you the high level version of what I do in a workshop or a retreat. And it's really it's helping you to understand how you got to where you are. Because most of us are just uncomfortable in the way that things are in the world, because our outer world we believe that our outer world will affect our inner world, and it's the other way around. If I'm in alignment, if I'm authentic, if I'm true, if I'm organic with who I am, I don't give a shit what goes on in the outer world, right? Because I'm rooted in. It's like a tree. We're rooted in to who we are. And whenever our branches start blowing, the tree doesn't necessarily uproot itself consistently. So the self-awareness is really about understanding and pausing. Oh, I'm triggered because that impacts me from perhaps when I was a child or a past relationship. And it's all about, how did I get here? And we have to unwind from that, Because when we only see that everyone has done something to us, we're never looking at ourselves. We're never looking at ourselves if we're always looking outside of ourselves.
What if people have done something to us? You know, they have. We've been all victimized and some, but how do you turn that around and say, not to say, oh, I created those awful things, but maybe you do say, how do you work with that?
That is a very great question. It's a very fragile question, because where I discovered in my, and this is my truth, what I discovered in my journey, and we've been talking about this, is that it's about our soul's incarnation. We have all chosen what it was that we wanted to learn when we incarnated here. We just don't remember. I don't remember what I said I was going to do from my soul's perspective. And now I'm in human form, right? So for me, and I'm going to say this at a very high level, my soul chose to incarnate here. And I get my lessons so that my soul can evolve through the human experience. Some of us have very traumatic experiences that have happened. Others have traumatic experience in another way. We can do one of two things. We can either be the victim of that circumstance that has transpired for us, and then we never get out of that hole. And it's a very delicate balance because this is so multi-layered here. It's so multi-layered. The other fork in that road is that how can I use this horrifying experience to evolve my soul? And I'm going to bring it to myself, even though I didn't have, being in the dark night of the soul for 5 years was a very, very scary place to be. I mean, I was in a bad place. I had an opportunity to check out. And what I realized in a moment of clarity was that I could either take all the wisdom that I had learned through that harrowing journey and taken it all with me, or I could take what I learned in AA, which I hadn't been to a meeting in 14 years, still sober, or I could take what I learned, as painful and as graceful as I was, and share what I learned. And that was where I became the wounded healer. Because I can't give away what I don't have. And I had to go through a harrowing journey in order to lead others out of that darkness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there was, when you shared what had happened to you and the pain you were in, that was a sort of freedom, would you say? I mean, did something change? Yeah.
It was I didn't see it as a freedom at the time because I didn't have the tools. I mean, I was so in the 3D. Everything was about my career, what I owned, my retirement, where I lived, my job title, all of it. And when it got stripped away, I mean, all of it, I had 10 life crises in 10 months. And at the age of 47, I was standing looking at the ocean, freaking out and wondering who in the hell I was. I didn't know who I was without all my labels. So I went to putting it back from the outside, getting money, getting a job, doing all the whole thing. And then I got stage 3C breast cancer. And it wasn't until that happened and I came out of a year of treatment that I was like, wow, I'm doing it again. But I didn't know what to do. And the universe just put me in the most optimal place, and my whole life shifted 180 degrees. But I did a lot of self-work.
So to make that shift 180 degrees, that was like a crisis, a point, a nexus point. What did you think you did, and maybe you said it, inside to create that, outside? Yeah,
I did a lot of self-work because let me tell you, I used to sit with my coach And I was so full of anger. I mean, I was just like shaking, just pissed because of everything that at the time I referred to as happening to me, right? Wall Street collapsing, everything I lost. I mean, financial calamity. It was a lot. And what it was a moment of clarity where I was like, wow, I'm not in alignment with who I am because I didn't know who I was. I did not know who I was. And that scared me about more than anything. And then I and I went and worked with someone. And that was what started to guide me. And then I started realizing, just based on my background in human resources for 21 years, AA for 21 years, I track behavior. It's part of who I am. And I started to see my own behavior. And I started realizing like, wow, I'm focusing all my energy on everything that happened to me, that I wasn't putting any energy into what is the life that I actually want to create for myself? How am I bringing joy in my life? Because I had none. I was in survival mode from all the crisis.
So it sounds like, you had to go through this to get to this place of a way. I mean, what a difficult journey, but you've done it, you've made it. So
yeah, it was a really brutal journey, but I can tell you, Alan, I'm an experiential learner. I don't learn by reading. I don't learn by whatever. It's like I have to go to some deep, deep places because I know that when I've gone this deep and I've done all the work way down in the barrel, that I can work with anyone because I can hold this space for that. If I've only gone a little bit, I can't hold the container for you.
So thank you so much. That is intense and beautiful. And that's your work in the world, holding space for people. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I love it because I was sitting with someone yesterday who's really struggling in his addiction and he's half my age. And just seeing his lights come on, I was like, there it is. There it is. Like, I'm like, there it is. And that's what's the most exciting for me because I see the pain that people in because I'm an empath and I also feel it.
And you've experienced it. You could see in the other person what you have in yourself. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for going into that. That's intense. I mean,
it is.
But it's so authentic and so real. It's like, and that's what Tangela wanted us to say, authentic and vulnerable. I mean, that's it. So Nicole, how do you work to bring out that, maybe not exactly that, but in the community, you are emerging as a leader to bring people back to themselves. And you sort of talked about doing your work, but can you go into your work a little more, how you work with people one-on-one or collectively?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I want to give a shout out to India because I have sat with India around in some things going on for me. And it's super interesting how she does hold a really sacred, deep container. And, in my relationship, we worked together with India at one point when we were having some challenges. And of course, relationships are the divine mirror. So the love relationships and the business relationships that we're in are the ones that teach us the most. And I just want to give you a shout out, India, because you hold a really sacred container and you don't take sides. You just take space and then you help. I feel like what she really does is help people to have the spaciousness to truly see one another. And I just wanted to give that shout out, and also to Joan of Angels, because I'm super blessed to be on a panel with two goddesses that I've worked with. Obviously, I've worked deeply with Tangela as well. So I think that's actually one of the things that I do the most. I love learning what people do so that I can help bring highest expression to and through them. So it always looks a little different when I work with people one-on-one. Yes, with Joan, let me just show you. Look at this gorgeous painting. This is me. This is my higher soul self. And I had this beautiful session with Joan right before I was putting on this huge event where I had to step into who I was as a liberated light leader, which really what came through was that I was a leader in my past lives on other planets, and I was here to call my soul family together. And that's what I did when I created the 1111 Gates of Heaven. Because I love to bring people together and create a magical soup, if you will. And so it kind of looks that way one-on-one. It's the soup for you. You know, it's I'm holding a space like India, but I hold a different space, which is the space of what your highest expression that might want to come through. And then I have the background of, and this is the part I said earlier, where I've done all these random things and they really came together for me this year, realizing like I had a podcast, I have a marketing background, a coaching background, I'm an artist, I'm a creator in all these ways. And I was always like, what am I doing? I remember thinking, there is something wrong with me. Why do I keep putting my hands into all these different pies? And what really came through in the last 2 years is that it was all for this time, this divine time on the planet. All these random things come together in this beautiful alchemy that is me, that is Nicole, and that is what I'm here to share with people. And so it is very bespoke, you know, that I love that word. It's one of a kind. Each person I work with is a one of a kind soul. And so what comes through for them is one of a kind. When I work one-on-one, I like to work with people and do, it's called a divine architecture session. I work with the 4 directions, the medicine wheel, and with the angels and guides, particularly Metatron, to bring through the divine architecture for their particular soul sacred business. And so they get this 90-minute session, and then I do this map for them. That's their unique map. And they kind of get to see where the 4 directions are for them and their essence. And then they also get their next right expansive action step. Because I can always see, you know, a lot of times when we're multidimensional entrepreneurs, we have a million ideas, but what we sometimes need is to to bring those down into a tangible plan. And when we're multidimensional, it's sometimes hard to go from the big vision to the tangible. So that's really what I do. I'm a bridge between, yeah. Does that make?
I ask you, so if I go to you and say I want a session, what exactly, I mean, you don't have to give me a session now, but what exactly do you do? Because I just want, so how do you tune into, let's say, me, or, yeah, go ahead, please. No,
I want to eat it. No, yeah, so what we do is we start out and we call in our angels and guides. So we get into the higher realm. We don't start from this 3D. We start from this higher realm where we're calling in all of our guides and angels, your guides and angels, because we all have, actually this morning, the veil was very thin. And one of mine, this is so funny, is Robin Williams. He comes through to me and he came through this morning as Patch Adams just to remind me to be playful and to remember that is my power, is to be in the bliss play. Because sometimes when things are hard in life, like we can get out of that. So he was like, hey, so we call in those guides. And then from there, I really follow a process of inquiry. So I might have a few questions written down already, but I literally am in full divine surrender trust with the universe and with the guides and angels, and knowing that I bring a particular lens that I look through, but I'm really not in my logical mind. So I will take people through a series of questions, and everyone is different, you know. I always preface the session, like, if somebody's really prone to getting into story, I will say, listen, give me permission to guide you, like, be in trust with me. So I really set the tone that people know that to not have specific expectations. But by the end of the session, these questions get more and more directional, and I'll learn about, like, where is that low-hanging fruit financially that you could just, like, boom, you know, within a week, create this other revenue stream. And what do you need to stop doing? That's like one of the directions is really like, what is the sun setting on? What are you releasing, right? And then the true north is like, who are you? What's your North Star? Like really that thing to anchor you and remember you. And then what are you rising into? So they'll have a divine map. I usually take 2 or 3 days after to compile the information. And then I give them a beautiful physical map that they can hold on to. And then they can continue working with me if they want to build out one of those systems. Because I have it's funny, I'm very creative, but I learned that this year I actually have quite a bit. I also have the ability to create structure. I don't like to do the same thing over and over. And that's one of my, the things that I work on. That's why I like working with different people on different projects, but I really can help build, you know, the foundational scaffolding, which is what many spiritual entrepreneurs are missing. And a lot of times they're missing the bridge of communication with their perfect ideal client. They're up here talking about the multidimensional realm, and they're talking about the Akashic and the angels, and like they're talking about all this stuff, but they need a bridge between where they take their clients and where their clients actually are, so that their clients can find them in the language. So that's one of the things I love doing, is helping to put language.
After, you know, northeast, southwest, and you start in the south where you're going, right? Is that what you're saying?
You know what?
And
I don't start. I actually just allow this is like, it's true surrender with the divine. I literally allow them to guide me. I do have all the directions by the end, but they don't know what they are yet. So the map is like an unveiling, kind of like Joan unveils her paintings. The map is my unveiling of and they may have pieces of it, right? So it's always such a beautiful process that's never the same, but it's always super valuable. And I also love to design curriculum and experiential, like with the platinum program that I helped with Tangela in the last year. It was an experiential program to take people from starting out on the Soul Search platform to, you know, to mastering some of the marketing elements in a journey. So we would meet on Zoom, and I take them through an experience. It's not like we're just here sitting together. I mean, you're going into breakout rooms, you're filling out forms, you're connecting with one another. So it's really, I love creating multidimensional experiences for people, and people's businesses are multidimensional because they're an extension of their soul, of them. So it's, you know, there's never one cookie cutter way to do anything. There's also, like, say, Joan loves to speak extemporaneously. I mean, look at India. She loves to speak. For India, it might not make sense to launch a blog. It might make sense to launch a podcast or a YouTube channel or a Soul Search TV channel. So we also just get to like know the essence of that person. And I know enough about all the things, you know, that you have to do online to help people find their path that's true to them. Because if you just watch videos online, you will waste years trying to build something we all probably know about. We've all probably gone down some rabbit holes, right?
But one more question. What's your vision for the community? What you would like to do in this next year, 2023, 24, with the collective?
Wow. So let me just sit with that for a second. Yeah. So my vision for community is to, you know, I just had someone reach out to me who's like a promoter, and he's like, I want to talk to you about what we're going to create this year. Like, I feel like I want to be an access point to support people and what they want to create, and an access point for them to communicate more multidimensionally, more in alignment with their soul, you know, to one another. So, and even like I notice, you know, being in Sedona, there's so much light here, but there's also a ton of shadow. So I feel like I'm somebody like India, like she's gone super deep. I had a boyfriend that passed away. I've gone to the depths as well of like pain. And I know I'm just a stand for people moving through their conflicts and resolving on the other side. So I love what India said about, you know, we're creators, we're creator beings. That's how I see us. And I would love to be a a point of light in the community to help bridge some of the things. There's so many people doing similar things, and they're doing it out of the old paradigm is like competition, right? Why not be in collaboration and communion? And there's so many, like, I just want to see more people helping other people thrive, not being in competition. So I feel like I want to be a point for that.
Well, maybe well, there are some great community events happening in Sedona. Maybe we can all collaborate on that. You know, there's the Ascension Retreat, Suzanne Ross, and then there's things we want to create. Joan and I and Neil are doing a Crystal Skull event, which will really be epic. So we want, what's that?
Yes. Well, I'm here for it all, brother.
That's why I'm glad you're there. Right, Joan? Are you with us, Joan? Did we lose?
I want to say something. Nicole did some work with me in helping me find the language to express what I do, which I think for some of us is really hard. We know we do something, but how to describe the untangible. And so, Nicole, you have a very, very special gift. So I just want to thank you for that gift that you're bringing to the world and helping us creators see how not just how to create, but the way we create.
Yeah. Thank you, Joan. I love you too.
I want to give her a shout out as well. You know, for someone like myself who transitioned, you know, spirit took me on a whole other path. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, like from a marketing standpoint and all that, and launching my book. Nicole was really, really instrumental in helping me take like the funnel and taking everything from out here and bringing it down so that it felt like it was manageable, because it was a whole new language for me. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you, India. Yeah, a lot of times spiritual entrepreneurs, they have something they want to do, but there's all this scaffolding that goes along with it. I'm sure Neil and also Tangela know that very well. You probably too, Alan. It's like Joan. It's there's all these layers, and you have to know the desired outcome, and then you work backwards from that so that you don't have to create a million things and have like a bunch of fail. Like it just helps you to actually create success, to know what the desired outcome is, and then work backwards in the scaffolding. And you know, it can be very overwhelming for entrepreneurs that are trying to go online or trying to expand, to know what to do, because it's, you know, it took me many years. So I love to save people time and pain and make it fun.
Thank you. Well, let's connect when I'm in Sedona, you know, and then Joan, are you still there? I wanted to ask you.
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay. No, I know we have a lot going on this year. Just so recap some for our audience. We're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo. Then we're doing Suzanne Ross's event in Sedona Ascension Retreat. And then why don't you take over what else is happening? Because you're intimately involved in that. Because I'm talking about what we want to create this.
Okay, so what we're creating and what I'm a part of creating is the return of some of the ancient mystery schools that were sent out thousands of years ago when Atlantis fell. And we are really representatives, many of us, who carried out these sacred teachings. And thanks to Neil's waking up and his memory of establishing ancient teachings places, we've become a team, all of us, in bringing these sacred teachings around the world. So we have several in-person events that are extraordinary. We have come April, the Portal to Ascension Conference in San Diego, where we still have room for a few more people who want to sign up and attend. Tangela is a sponsor of that. Alan and I are both hosts and co-producers. And I would say that there's almost probably 30 plus speakers on different aspects of grounding this wisdom in. And, you know, you won't resonate with everyone, but the ones you're going to resonate with will be there. And that's the exciting part. And I will have some of my art there for everyone, which is a big deal. It's the first time I'm bringing my art back out. Then Alan and I are work with Conscious Life Expo, where we're hosts, we introduce speakers. I have a 90-minute free workshop on Friday afternoon there, and I'm co-hosting a panel with Alan. Well, he's invited me graciously to be on the angel panel as a co-host. So you can see us there and meet and greet us in person there. But even more exciting, the heart chakra of the planet. And, you know, I'm thinking we need a little goddess event there, but the goddesses were very powerful in Glastonbury, in Avalon, at the Isle of Avalon, and where the tour is. And, you know, those goddesses were so powerful, they could summon the boat to come through the fog to pick them up and then guide this boat without oars back home. And so we were very powerful. And so there's a revival of the ancient powers in Glastonbury. So I'm honored to speak there, as well as be one of the producers. But that's not limited. We then go off to Egypt, where what we are going together, and we're going to be such a powerful group. We have several amazing people that are also going to be on the tour with us to guide and to bring information. And for me, it's the return of Hathor and my memories as Hathor, the goddess. But what it is, it's a grand initiation for everyone who is called to be with us, who were with us in maybe Atlantis or in Egypt, or, you know, Alan, I saw him carrying the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Egyptian scrolls. And so I think it's a return of the powers that we once had and the skills. So after Egypt, where you can be on the Egyptian cruise for 4 nights on the Nile River, okay, imagine the ships we're going to call in then and the ancient deities. So to prepare for this, I've been like learning my skills and learning how to be that who I am. And I can't wait to share that. But last but not least in that year culminates in the Crystal Skull Conference in Sedona. And we actually are going to be looking for vendors soon. We have almost, you know, a full roster of speakers. We have a surprise guest I'm not going to mention. It's Alan's special surprise guest for us. And I can only tell you that those of you who are artists or who have studied sacred art and vibrational art are going to go, oh my God, I have to be there. So we have that, but the purpose of these events is to really, go ahead.
Side where not only me, Joan, and Neil, but JJ Hertog and Desiree Hertog are going to be leading the tour, and they've been to Egypt 20 or more times, and it's just going to be a fantastic to these ancient temple sites. I mean, I've been to Egypt before. Tangila's been there. You know, Tangila, when you stand in those temples, you are transported beyond time and space. So don't you think so, Tangila?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, when you are in those Egyptian temples, you get transported back in time and beyond the beyond, because what is remaining is still so magnificent and awe-inspiring that it really blows your mind open. You know, it takes you out of your logical mind, because you're like, how could this have been created and by who? And when you are there, you feel that energy, and it's just, yeah, it's next level, as I like to say, Alan.
and it's part of our initiation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, go ahead. No, I'm just saying those temples were built. Your word temple means reflection of the stars, or reflection, or so these are star gates that activate. And going back to what Joan said at the beginning, these are the ancient schools, and it takes us as initiates returning there to reactivate the purpose, I think, of some of those temples. What were you going to say, Joan?
Well, also, you know, we're living in a world that's really been bleak and dark, and really was trying to go darker. So the more of us that come through and remember how powerful we are, remember that we came here as the light. We had we came from Egypt, many of us. Any of you who are called are part of those sacred temples and mystery schools. And when we activate that, we raise the light frequency of the planet to become that again. You know, the return of the light is what we're celebrating here. And each of you are initiates in this journey. And I think that's how powerful this journey is going to be. So if you feel the call, really do reach out for that. And all of these, by the way, every event we're having has a sacred feel and a sacred energy to it. It's all about celebrating your divinity and saying yes to it, you know, still, like, stop hiding it. You know, you can't hide your power. And that's what I think our events are doing.
Exactly. Joan, I just want to say exactly. We were talking about authenticity, vulnerability, curiosity, and, each one of us here and everyone attending, all of us are, stepping into this, being these liberated light leaders, who we truly are, and coming together in this kind of event that we're having now, this Quantum Human Conference, where we're able to connect so authentically. Like this is what liberates us. This is what's powerful, because I can just show up here and be me and be authentic and share with each one of you. And that's what all of Neil's events are about. And that's what we're doing here together at Soul Search. And now being able to, get together in person as well is so powerful. So that's just what I love about all of it. We have Suzanne's event coming up in March, which is going to be so exciting for all of us being able to come together in Sedona, and then San Diego and Glastonbury and Egypt. I mean, it's just, us being able to get together in all of these PowerPoints and continue building these connections on the energetic and personal levels, and really giving ourselves permission to be authentic, be vulnerable, be who we are, so.
Saying that, Tangela, because I didn't want to make it sound like we're just self-promoting commercial, like kind of side kind of track. But no, we want to bring community together so each of us can drop into a place and feel supported by community to be your authentic self. And I think, Zoom is great for what it is, but, and India said some very powerful, deep things to help people awaken, and coming together as a community at these sacred locations like India, Glastonbury, Sedona. Sedona is as sacred as it gets, I feel. There's a support there, not all from the community, but also from the earth, and those structures themselves support people, because there's a vibratory shift that happens, and there's an awakening that's easier to be accessed. So this is about a big plan. This is about the big community, all the things that Soul Search and Joan and Neil and everybody here, India, Nicole, we want to build something that is for the planet. We want to imagine if everyone lived in their authenticity, in their vulnerability, in their truth, in that from the inside out, trusting their feelings. Just imagine what an incredible world that would be, and can be, and maybe will be. But we are the way showers, and we're here to remind each other, oh, I need to get more vulnerable. I need to drop in. I need to, feel more authentic. I'm happy when we can remind each other of that in this community. Oh, you could be more authentic, that you could, not as a criticism, but as, oh, thank you. You're for me. You're doing this because you want me to be the best I can be. And I think that's the benefit of community, is to trust that your community is for your evolution, it is for your upliftment, it's for your awakening. So I just wanted to kind of have that end with that sort of. Or Neil, thanks for jumping back in. Do you have any closing words you want to say?
Yeah, I just went out to grab some food, so didn't hear the last few. But yes, lately I've been on the fast track for evolution, even though I got into doing portal ascension, which I found later in a plant medicine ceremony. I had a realization 8 years after I started portal ascension. I realized why I did it. It was modality, portal ascension is a modality to help heal the wounds that I received as a child. And so I've been on this journey looking to heal some deep innate traumas that happened from like when I was like 3 to 7 and then continued rippling after that. And as I was doing that, I've been around hundreds of different modalities, traveled the whole world, trying to figure out what to do. And all of a sudden, around 4 or 5 months ago, the evolution of my actual implementation, the embodiment, the groundedness, the solutions started presenting themselves like never before. And right now, I feel the most empowered I've ever been. 3 weeks ago, I wasn't the same person. I'm taking action like I've never taken before. And I've been sharing with people that I'm on the fast track for evolution. I've evolved more in the last 2 months than I have in the last 8 years. And as I've been sharing this, I've been seeing that a lot of other people are experiencing this too. And so what I liken it to is that, if you go through the wormhole, the event horizon, to go to the next dimension, literally transferring through the black hole, we were once at the ends of that black hole, taking multiple lives to go around it. We're right now at the event horizon. And as we're at the event horizon, our stuff is coming up more and more, and the opportunities for evolution, the opportunities for vulnerability are coming up. And we have the opportunity to choose it or not to. And, I just made really good friends with a couple of people that I've been friends with online, Tarek, Vivi, and Nature Flow. And they've been here with me the last few weeks. Just the brotherhood, the connection. I've never let men into my life like this in years. And just being seen, heard, and accepted, and communicating from a place of vulnerability, and then saying, thank you for reminding me, rather than being defensive, thank you for reminding me how it is to be vulnerable, And that's truly where I'm at right now. No real solution. They're just kind of showing my process that I have hope. I have hope not just for myself, but I have a lot of hope for humanity. The tools are out there, and it's just a matter of time before we all embody it.
Well, thank you, Neil. I just want to share my process for a second, because when I wrote this book, Making Contact, I didn't even know why I called it that, but I realized I was making contact with myself, with a deeper part of myself. So when I'm writing, it's a process of trying to get as honest and authentic. So I write a sentence and it just comes, it's just downloaded. And then I say, how does this feel? Does this feel like truth? And if it doesn't, I keep working at that until I get this resonant feeling like, oh, yes, that's what I want to say. And that feels as true as it can be in this moment. And then sometimes I go back and it feels like, oh, I can make that feel even more authentic and true. And it's been my inner process to get to a deeper part of myself, is writing, and journaling and all that. And, I love visual arts, but I really like waking up in the morning and just spilling out the internal dialogue and getting downloads and finding what's the most real and authentic thing I can actually write. Well, and in relationship to the UFO phenomenon, but in anything, it has to, I have to feel it. And so I think it's about feeling. This whole discussion has been about who are we as feeling beings? Because that's our true nature. That's what makes us human. It's not the thinking part. I think, therefore I am. No, it's I feel, and it's everything you were put in the subject title. What's the feeling here, Tangela? And the feeling is what our souls are. Our soul, from my understanding, is the recorder of our feelings from lifetime to lifetime. It's what, if you hear a song, you start to cry, or see a movie, it's touching the soul essence, and that's your soul speaking. So I just love hearing everybody's reminders of how do we get to the authentic, true, vulnerable parts of ourselves. And it's all a working process for me anyway. Maybe there are some people who are there all the time, and it's great. I want to be around those people. But for a lot of us, and I appreciate India's deep dive into that process. But I'm really happy to have this discussion and we should have it once a week on Soul Search, an authentic discussion. So
That's true. Exactly. I know. I appreciate that because, that's what this is. It's an authentic discussion, and each one of you here are powerful teachers and leaders in the spiritual community. And you have so many gifts and modalities and teachings that you share all the time, and which is amazing. But then to also be able to come together and share in this deep way just about our own experiences and what we're going through, and that it's still a journey and it's still a process. That's a liberation for each one of us. It's a liberation for me being able to come here and share openly with all of you and everyone watching, because that's not something I would have ever done in the past, or I would have felt comfortable doing, but seeing you guys being so brave, I'm like, okay, let me step forward as well. And so it's just really being able to inspire one another to really be our higher selves. And that's what, building spiritual community is really all about, Alan. And I love that you said, like, we should have this discussion. And that's what we're planning, actually, to have a weekly discussion called Answering the Call, so that people can be coming together, because we've had that request from people all over the world saying, hey, I love coming to these big online events, but I want to connect with you guys, more regularly. I want to be able to share my stories more regularly. So that's just, that's one of the many things that we're bringing forth this year. So, it's that's what this is about, really being authentic and vulnerable with one another.
It's the core of any community, yes, spiritual communities especially, but all communities, they come together to share their truth. I think that's why people live in communities, because we need each other, not in a codependent way, but in an independent way, so we can be encouraged to be ourselves. That's my feeling. So thank you, Tangela. This has been a very empowering discussion for me and maybe for other people. So any final words on that, or anybody else have anything they want to close out with? India, you have anything to say?
Yeah, I really love what Tangela just said. When we talk about liberation, it's like, how do we liberate ourselves, right? And for me, it's about unwinding myself. It's like, if you imagine your internal world knotted up, that's not liberation. But when we start to unwind all the ways that we suffocate ourselves, when we hold ourselves hostage, and we start to unwind from that, that's when we truly liberate ourselves. And it's a scary process for most of us, but it's a very liberating, and it can be a very fun process, because we give it names and we create things out of it. It's like, we are both the shadow and the light. Both of them are necessary. And when we disown one, we're not holding true to who we are. And it can be such a beautiful process. It doesn't have to be frightening. It doesn't.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you for being a way shower, because you've been through the dark and into the light. So we need leaders like that who had that experience, and hold the space for that. What about you, Nicole? Anything you want to leave the people with?
Yeah, just I love what India said, and I think I would just invite people to get curious about what life's showing them, and remember that you are a creator being. So, what India was saying earlier about how, when she was in that place of frustration and the dark night of the soul, she wasn't in a place of creation. So allowing yourself to come into the energy of what you want to create. And one of the things I do is every morning before I get out of bed, I lay there with myself and I talk to myself until I'm in the space of what am I going to create this day? And I'm imagining all the things that I'm going to do, and like feeling those things going well. And I do that every morning before I get going. I don't want to step out of the bed in that 3D realm. I want to step out of the bed in inviting myself into the higher realm of what I can create. So That's my advice.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. And you, Joan, anything you want to?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone who was divinely inspired to create Portal to Ascension and New Realities and Soul Search, and each and every one of you, and the conference coming up in March, and that each of you listened to the visionary within you and the goddess or God or the guide that said to you, this is your assignment. This is what you're here to do. And each of you interpreted that, and here we are. And it's the same thing for everyone listening to us now. There is, people have called me the visionary's visionary. Well, what does that mean? That means that the leader in you is actually being divinely inspired. And sometimes we're the last ones to know what that divine inspiration is. So let today be that awakening of, oh my God, I know that there's that essence within me is like so screaming to come out and be heard. Like we are birthing the new us, and the new us is the one we've always been, but couldn't be there down on that planet that we live on. And guess what? Things are so changing on the planet that these openings are here for us now. And we have a full moon happening, and, not just dream on, but dream and know. There's that song from Disney, when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who or where you are, your dreams will come true. This process has been promised to us this lifetime, that we will ascend, we will have our dreams come true. You just have to grab the wand and grab one of us if you need that help, because we've all been there. And so I'm so honored to be with all of you luminaries. I can't wait till we're all together again. And some of you we work with, I work with you with Neil, and I had you on some shows with Suzanne and Tangela and Alan. And it is like pure bliss when you're with your soul tribe, like just bliss. It's not work. It's like, oh my God, I'm about to have fun again. And it's so passionate and exciting. So take the ride.
Wow. Thank you, Joan. Thank you. Thank you. Neil, I guess we're running out of time, but anything you want to end with?
No, that's it. Let's go ahead and close this one out here. And
okay. Thank you, Tangela, for allowing me to host this.
Oh, thank you so much, Alan, for co-hosting and moderating the panel, and for all of you watching, just thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, on the Zoom room. And we're just so excited that you all were there. I know, Neil, you wanted to chat a little bit about San Diego. We actually did chat about San Diego, Glastonbury, and Crystal Skulls. So just
and Egypt.
And Egypt.
All right, yeah, nice. On the next panel, maybe we'll do a little screen share at the end.
Sure.
But for everybody tuning in, we're going to go ahead and close the stream for YouTube and Facebook. You can go to our channel pages for the next one. We're going to go live in about 4 to 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and close out. Thank you all for connecting. See you in a bit.